watching Big Brain Energy. Okay, so you know the basics of supply and demand, but you still have some questions. What the heck is even meant by demand? Why do the curves look like they do? And what's even meant by words like market? Let your confusion come to an end. In this video, we're going to cover all you need to know about supply and demand. This is the first video in our series on the market graph. In these videos, we will cover everything you need to know for NCEA 3.1, Demonstrate Understanding of the Efficiency of Market Equilibrium. Let's get into it. In economics, we use the word market all the time. What does this actually mean, though? A market is the exchange of goods and services between consumers and producers. Basically, it's an abstract concept where we bring together all the people selling one thing and all the people wanting to buy this thing. We represent a market using a demand and supply graph like this. For example, the market for Moro bars is not a physical farmer's market where you buy and sell Moro bars, but it's an abstract concept that encompasses all the people selling Moro bars and all the people who want to buy Moro bars. The market could be classified as all the people in one particular area or demographic, or all the people in one country, or all the people who have to do with Moro bars in the world. Obviously, we don't have a Moro bar convention where all these people actually come together and buy and sell Moro bars. It's just a name which groups all these people together, the market for Moro bars. Or the market for Shrek DVDs. This is all the people who sell Shrek DVDs, so places like The Warehouse or Trade Me or video shops, and all the people who want to buy Shrek DVDs. Let's look closely at that graph now. The market graph consists of a demand curve and a supply curve. We call any line on a graph a curve in economics, even if it's a straight line. The demand curve shows the quantity of a good or service that consumers are willing to buy at a given price. It's typically downward sloping. It can be drawn as either a straight line like this one or as a curve. It's the same thing. The law of demand states that, all else being equal, as the price of a good or service increases, consumer demand for it decreases, and vice versa. Basically, if something is cheaper, more people would want it. For example, when a Moro bar costs $5, this graph tells us that a consumer would be willing to buy 2 Moro bars at this price. You can tell this by following the $5 dotted line out to where it hits the demand curve, then go straight down to the quantity axis. The supply curve, in contrast, shows the quantity of a good or service that producers are willing to sell at a given price, and it's typically upward sloping. The law of supply states that, all else being equal, an increase in the goods price leads to an increase in the quantity supplied, and vice versa. Basically, if something is more expensive, then people would want to sell more of it because it's more profitable. If something wasn't very profitable, they just wouldn't worry about selling much of it. For example, when they set the price of a Moro bar at $3, the graph tells us that they would be willing to sell 2 Moro bars at this price. You can tell this by following the $3 dotted line out to where it hits the supply curve, then going straight down to the quantity axis. Chuck those two curves on a graph together and you get the market graph. The point where the two curves intersect is called the market equilibrium. The market equilibrium is the point where quantity demanded equals quantity supplied. It's basically like the compromise point between the producers and the consumers. This is where the consumers and producers basically agree on how many Moro bars, for example, they would be willing to buy and sell at this price. This is the price that the producer ends up selling the Moro bars for. We label the price at this point PE for equilibrium price, and the quantity at this point is QE for equilibrium quantity. Here's a full summary of all you need to know about the topic. A market is the exchange of goods and services between consumers and producers. The demand curve shows the quantity of a good or service that consumers are willing to buy at a given price. It is typically downward sloping. The supply curve shows the quantity of a good or service that producers are willing to sell at a given price, and it is typically upward sloping. And the market equilibrium is the point where quantity demanded equals quantity supplied. Let's practice what we've just learnt. Feel free to pause the video if you need more time. What is a demand curve? The demand curve shows the quantity of a good or service that consumers are willing to buy at a given price. It is typically downward sloping. What is a supply curve? The supply curve shows the quantity of a good or service that producers are willing to sell at a given price, and it is typically upward sloping. What is a market equilibrium? The market equilibrium is a point where quantity demanded equals quantity supplied. Draw the market equilibrium graph. Here's the answer. The axes are price and quantity. Price of the thing being sold and quantity of it being sold. The demand curve is downward sloping and the supply curve is upward sloping. The point where they intersect, the market equilibrium, is labelled PE and QE. And that's everything for our first video on the market graph. Next, we'll be looking at producer and consumer surpluses. If you have any questions about what we've covered, drop it in the comments below and we'll reply to you. You can also let us know in the comments what you'd like us to cover next. If you found this video useful, please consider liking and subscribing. It's a little thing for you, but it means that we can keep making free NZ-centered economic videos. See you next time for some more big brain energy.